In I Spy.
Good evening. More than 1 million surveillance cameras are watching over our streets, and more than 3 million of us own a video camera. Tonight on I Spy, some of the remarkable events captured on tape. A wrecking spree filmed by the vandals themselves.
I would have never suspected him until I saw it with my own eyes on videotape.
How police stop a drunk driver who'd borrowed an HGV rig from work. And the story of the 2 men who narrowly escaped death in the River Thames.
I think they were lucky.
Plus, the footage police want you to see to try to help solve a crime. But first, a truly remarkable story of detection from America. North Long Beach, on the edge of the Los Angeles ghetto of Compton. One day in a county jail, an inmate had an extraordinary story to tell.
One of the jailers called down and informed us that they had a guy in custody, and he was telling them that he had information about somebody wanting to commit a murder. What he told us was that he'd been contacted by a female who wanted him to arrange her husband's death.
The prisoner was released the next day on the condition he set up a meeting with the woman. He agreed to wear a wire, and detectives parked a surveillance van nearby.
You want him killed or you just want him beat up?
I can beat him up.
So you want him killed? Took out? Joe is going to kill him. I told you at $2,500, right? Whatever Charles has on him, they take the money, whatever he has in his wallet, and his jewelry, right?
Okay.
Joe wants to get it over with.
I don't care what he does. You better kill him then.
Okay.
We can get out and get some donuts.
Yeah. Okay, but check.
Detectives now had to break the news of the woman's plot to her husband, a part-time preacher. They pulled him over the next day as he drove to work.
They said, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is we are the police department. The bad news is your wife wants you dead.
Incredibly, it emerged that there had already been 2 attempts on Charles's life.
I had been shot at on the freeway. I had been almost ambushed in my own home. And none of these things actually added up. So when this news was given that my wife wanted me dead and she was hiring someone to kill me, all the puzzle came together.
In the search for more convincing evidence, detectives persuaded Charles to take the sting a stage further and pretend he really had been murdered.
They treated me to the breakfast, and on the way out, they said, okay, she wants you dead, we have to kill you.
We rolled him in the dirt, put some dirt on him.
They took packages of ketchup and just began to make me up as a dead person.
And we staged his death in a field.
They took the appropriate pictures, and I looked really dead.
Police drove Perma Jean Pritchard and her son, who was also in on the plot, to the murder scene. A hidden camera filmed her reaction when they broke the tragic news.
Does that car look familiar? That's Detective McMahon right there, and you say that is Charles' car then? Yeah. Okay. He's got a picture he wants me to have you look at and see if you can identify the person. I hate to do it that way, but the person's already gone. They've already taken, so if you could take a quick look and then more time.
The police officer hands Perma Jean a picture of her dead husband.
Okay, let me take that, Jean.
She gave a great act. Had we not videotaped meetings between her and the informant, we'd probably believed it. If they gave Academy Awards for this type of deal, she'd be right up there winning one.
Permagene and her son were taken back to the police station to identify Charles's property. Here, the final part of the sting was put into operation and again filmed by a hidden camera.
That you're going to be placed under arrest for solicitation for murder for hire.
What? That's a lie. How would that work? I haven't been nowhere. I go to work and come home. I'm with my kids. I'm at work. That is it. I can prove that I have did nothing wrong. That is my husband. I love him. We've had problems. We worked them out.
But detectives had one more trump card to play. Charles was about to come back from the dead and appear in a doorway behind the camera.
Hang on. Your husband's not dead.
I can imagine. He's not.
No.
He's not.
Bring him. Come in. Come on.
I wanted to see her face when she seen me reappear or come back to life.
Permagene Pritchett and her son Jesse both pleaded guilty to conspiracy to murder and were jailed for 9 years. And the motive? Charles's life insurance of $100,000.
So she was just basically out for my money. Wasn't much money, but to her it's worth killing me for.
Graffiti, vandalism and theft are crimes which affect us all. The culprits are mostly young and often in danger of graduating onto more serious offences. In this week's Street Watch, we explore how juveniles are being brought to justice. It's a hot summer day in South London. These two teenagers are trying to steal a £400 mountain bike, but it's locked to a post. Taking care to ensure they're not spotted, screw by screw, they dismantle the sign to lift the bike free. Still being watchful, one of them returns to remove the last screw. And then they leap into action. But at the crucial moment, the police arrive. They were both convicted of theft. This footage actually proved someone's innocence. A man appears to be brandishing a knife in the middle of the street in Stockport, Cheshire. The police are swift to move in, and they overpower him as the victim runs off. But all is not as it seems. The man's friends arrive and explain what really happened. In slow motion, you can see that the supposed knife man had actually disarmed the other man. The real offender was arrested off camera and was convicted of possessing an offensive weapon. Camera operators spotted these young boys trying to set a flower bed alight. Needing more fuel for the flames, they helped themselves to paper from a nearby cash point. But as they head back for more, the police arrive. They're sent home with a warning. And finally, British Transport Police in Liverpool used a hidden camera to investigate reports of children wandering onto a railway line. They got more than they bargained for. First one group, then another. In total, they filmed 70 children crossing the line in 15 minutes. It transpired they were from a nearby school and using it as a shortcut. Even some adults were at it. Not many of us can say for sure how we'd react in an emergency. If you saw someone drowning, would you dive in or would you call for help? That was the choice faced by one individual, and his split-second decision made the difference between life and death. The River Thames claims more than 50 lives a year, and if you fall in, there's little chance of surviving for more than 10 minutes. In May last year, the police air unit were on a routine patrol when they were called to what was to become a terrifying drama.
There are two people in the river, one has a life belt.
One of the men had thrown himself off the pier in an attempted suicide. The other, Derek Blair, was having lunch by the side of the river when he risked his own life by jumping in to save him.
He was getting dragged all the way out into the middle of the river. He was going down and coming up. He had all his clothes on. He refused to get into the ring at first, but I sort of talked him into it.
The river police had been alerted and were on their way, guided by the air unit.
Yes, no problem at all. The tide's taking very slowly down towards Hungerford Bridge. They're about 100 metres out midstream at the moment.
The bridge is basically on a bend, so effectively it's blind to travellers going through the bridge.
But what began as a routine rescue was about to take a dramatic turn.
One split up, well they're both split up, and they've lost their life jacket and they're trying to get back to it. One's clothed, one's not clothed. It's going to be interesting because there's a barge heading right for them.
The thought ran through my mind, well, are we going to be in time to actually pick them up before the tugboat gets to them? And I realised that there was no way that we could reach them in time.
The first we saw was when the police boat came towards us with all its flashing lights. I knew there was no way I could stop or slow down or alter course to miss the two men.
Pretty scary. It looked very large, sort of just looming out of the river. So I was sort of tugging him and kicking and shouting at him to kick as much as he could.
The boat narrowly misses the men, but they aren't out of danger. It's pulling 1,500 tons of barge.
I think they were lucky.
The comment from the helicopter pilot to us at the time was, they were lucky. I mean, that is the understatement of the year, and the injuries would have been utterly horrific. There is no way that anybody could have lived through that.
I thought we was going to run over, and I was well surprised when they missed the craft that we were towing.
It really looked like we were going to get hit, but luckily a final heave and a kick, and we got past it.
Yeah, they've got them both. They were extremely lucky. They've been washed down the side of the barge. One's in the boat, the second one's about to be hauled on now.
And this is the moment that the rescuer gets rescued himself.
I felt very relieved, very tired, pretty happy to be out the river, really. At the time, it didn't seem silly or stupid or dangerous at all. It was just something to be done. But on reflection, I suppose it was a pretty stupid thing to do.
The first man was taken to hospital and later discharged. Derek Blair retrieved his clothes and finished his lunch. In I Spy, after the break, why doormen in Scotland are wearing miniature cameras. And the helicopters that leave joyriders with nowhere to hide. Welcome back to I Spy. Cameras were first introduced on police helicopters 20 years ago. So dramatic was their impact, they're now seen as essential. In one city, the eye in the sky has cut crime to such an extent, it's now being used as a deterrent. 4 years ago, Greater Manchester Police became one of the first forces in Britain to put combined video and thermal imaging cameras in helicopters. Last year alone, they were called to almost 500 incidents. Here, a 16-year-old joyrider speeds through the outskirts of the city. But there's no way he can lose the helicopter.
Criminals now know that once the helicopter gets above them, they will be caught. So the criminals now try to abandon the car within the first few minutes of being detected.
After an 80-mile-an-hour chase, the boy and his passenger ditch the car and flee on foot.
We're going to try and get a location.
But the air unit crew direct officers on the ground, and the pair are trapped in an alleyway. The passenger was released, but the driver later convicted.
In all the 9 years of our helicopter being in service, we've never actually lost a stolen car yet.
The thermal imaging cameras make it just as hard for criminals to get away at night. Here, the helicopter's been called out to help track a drunk driver. He's borrowed an HGV rig from work and decided to drive home. Police throw spiked stingers across the road to puncture his tyres. The thermal imaging camera shows how the wheels burst into flames after the tyres are shredded. The driver abandons his vehicle and makes a run for it, trying to hide in a nearby garden. But he's cornered by police. This pair are more determined to shake off the police. They've already rammed a squad car and now run across 6 lanes of motorway to try to escape. But every move is tracked and officers on the ground are guided in.
Right, next on the left. You should be at the base of the fence, just below a tree.
Thermal image cameras now are actually indispensable, certainly at night time, because what it does give you is daylight quality pictures.
The Greater Manchester Force has now found a new way to use the cameras. This is Operation Santa.
Operation Santa has been designed to prevent crime on the shopping centres and retail parks on the lead up to Christmas.
The helicopter patrols above the city centre and it deters the criminals by its very presence. It's an ongoing project that's proved a great success. Last year, street robberies alone were cut by half. Now, can you help police solve a crime? On January the 14th this year, at a petrol station in Bognor Regis, a woman tries to use a stolen chequebook and card. They actually belonged to the wife of a Hampshire police inspector and had been stolen from their home in a burglary a month earlier. The woman is described as slim and about 5 feet 10 inches tall. If you can help identify her, call Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. That's 0800 555 111. The calls are free and you don't have to give your name. The teenagers we're about to see gave the police all the evidence they needed. When they went off the rails, they took a video camera with them. Jacksonville, Florida. In the summer of 1995, the quiet suburb of Arlington was hit by a spate of vandalism.
When you're talking of vandalism to a home, as well as a burglary, the crimes were very serious in nature. They were actually third-degree felonies.
The police had no idea who was committing the crimes, but in fact, every offence was being filmed on video camera by the vandals themselves. They were 6 high school students that no one would ever have suspected. But this footage was to be their downfall. It began as schoolboy hijinks.
What's your dumb?
At the time I was 15, probably acting like an 8-year-old, very young and stupid. Probably about as stupid as a teenager can get.
But it soon escalated into violence. The gang filmed themselves as they went in search of target houses.
Up there, hon. You gotta make a ride up here. It's right there.
In total, the boys did over $150,000 worth of damage.
It was almost like a contest of who could do more, you know, who could be the wildest one, cause the most damage.
One of the homes belonged to mother of 2, Pat Boylan.
The first thing I saw was the living room wall, which had holes in it big enough to step through and go into the next room. They broke all the ceiling fans, light fixtures, totally trashed the bathroom, threw paint all around the den on the carpet and the paneling.
Hate it when you just drop something.
When we first started investigating this case, we had no evidence whatsoever. We had no fingerprints, we had no witnesses, we had actually nothing to go on.
3 weeks and 20 houses later, police were still without a single clue. Then came the breakthrough. While interviewing one of the boys about a suspected church break-in, they found this videotape in his bag.
I was very excited because at that point I knew we had our people, we had our suspects, and all we had to do was go out and round them up.
With the evidence on tape, all 6 were convicted of burglary. In total, they were ordered to pay $150,000 compensation.
I really think everything we did was childish. None of us were thinking clearly at all. When I look back at the tape now, I can't believe anything I did. I really regret everything that I did on it, just absolutely everything on the tape.
They were the average, everyday high school students, and I would have never suspected them until I saw it with my own eyes on videotape.
An extraordinary experiment is taking place in Scotland. For the first time, door staff are wearing cameras. It's the latest move to clean up the bouncer's image, tarnished by scenes like this. 2 doormen outside a Stockport nightclub violently attack a man. They were charged with assault. More trouble at the door, this time Derby. These 2 are refused entry. Then the bouncer changes his mind. With his friend stuck inside, the man appeals to staff to open the door.
Come on, open up. Open up. Go on, open up. Go on.
Another night in Derby and another clubber is about to be refused entry.
What's the reason? Good reason. Talk to me out of the way of the door, please. Give me out of the way of the door. Give me a good reason. What's the reason for it? Give me a reason, please, gentlemen.
He's angry and he makes his feelings known.
We've all seen the stereotypical 19-stone bodybuilding doorman with no hair and lots of tattoos in a dirty old dinner jacket and suit and bow tie. It's the old frightening thug image that everybody's trying to move away from now.
Doormen in Aberdeen have come under increased scrutiny since last year when a bouncer killed a member of the public by pushing him down some steps. One security company has turned to miniature cameras to protect both doormen and customers.
With the camera being fixed to the head, basically everything the door steward sees, it will see also. It will also pick up what's actually being said. The whole idea and principle behind the headset is to be an independent witness for everyone.
You've got a belt that goes round your waist. Cable comes up the back which connects to the camera and the mouthpiece, which is recorded on tape and on TV and video through the back.
Bar staff and managers are able to monitor exactly what's going on. In the future, these could be in every night spot, with clubbers finding themselves caught on headcam. But at the moment, the cameras are prototypes and are not cheap. Each headset costs £1,500.
We've recognised for a long time that the CCTV systems do work. These new headcams take it a stage further, particularly on licensed premises where they can be moved about to particular incidents and record those.
An incident does take place at this club. Following a dispute between customers, a man protests his innocence but is asked to leave.
If we get called to an incident at a nightclub, we've got good, useful, hard copy evidence of what actually went on. Not what the doorman said happened, not what the customer said what happened, and not what any of the other witnesses say happened.
You are a lying. I'm not joking. Come on. For 1 minute, you're telling lies.
The benefits for the door industry with these headcams is obvious. There's no reason why the police might not want to use them in the future, who knows?
And finally, we've seen how thermal cameras in police helicopters help trap joyriders, but sometimes they're not needed. This driver takes a wrong turn and brings the chase to an abrupt halt.
The vehicle has stopped right outside Platt Lane Police Station on Platt Lane.
And that's all we have time for this week. Good night.
Next tonight, we're on patrol with the clean-up squad, whose job is to keep the hard shoulder clear on the motorway.